Of course, I want to keep moving with our Descendant selectors targeting the content that appears inside the sidebar. And of course, I was just sitting here thinking, well, what if we had other kinds of content inside our sidebar? What if we had a bulleted list? Maybe we have a list inside our sidebar and we also have a bulleted list outside of the sidebar, and I wanted them to look different. Again, this is exactly how I could pull it off using Descendant selectors, or maybe graphics, or maybe tables, or whatever kinds of content you have. It's really all the same story. Of course, I'm keeping my example relatively simple by simply using a heading 1 and a paragraph. So let's go and throw in some more formatting into our H1 Descendant selector and our P Descendant selector. So I'm going to go and throw in some more properties for my H1, and then I'll go and finish off my paragraph. So after the color that I've specified, I also want to go and specify a font. So I'm going to go font-family, :space, and I'm going to use the same font that I used for my paragraph, which is Trebuchet. I'm going to change the size. So I'm going to go font-size, :space. I'm going to go with 13 point. We'll see how that looks. Actually, let's save things up and take a quick look inside our browser. There we go, something like that. So now I'm controlling this formatting here. You know, something else that I want to do, though, is I want to control the space above and below my heading. And do we know how to control space on the outside of a rectangle or a rectangular space? We absolutely do. We know about margin. Now, I haven't shown you how to use margin on something like a paragraph or a heading. So far, we've seen this on graphics and on sidebars and things like that. But if I wanted to, for instance, control the space that appears below British Columbia, well, what I could do is I could go and find what British Columbia is, an H1, and I could set margin-bottom on this guy. And I could actually use a negative value if I wanted to reduce that amount of space, or I could increase that amount of space. Or maybe I want to increase the amount of space above my heading 1s, British Columbia and Prince Edward Island, by using margin-top. So in any regard, we haven't seen how to actually use margin on things like paragraphs and headings, but let's go and do it. So what I'm going to do is head back into my code. I'm going to head back to my sidebar H1. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to specify margin-top, :space, 0. In other words, nothing. I don't want any space above this guy. And I'm going to go margin-bottom on this fella. And I'm going to go -10 pixels. So in other words, I want to reduce the amount of space below this guy. And if I go and refresh, there we go. Now that space above and below my H1 has collapsed, which is exactly what I'm after. Okay, cool stuff. So we're seeing some pretty awesome techniques here. Now, how about the actual paragraph itself? Let's go and format this guy. There's a bunch of things I want to do on this guy. So I'm going to go and find that CSS rule. There he is, #, sidebar P, and I've already changed the font there. What else do I want to do on this guy? Well, I want to set the color to the same color that I used on my H1. So I'm going to go color, :space, and then I'll go #, 99CCFF, followed by a semicolon. There we go. What else? I'm going to change the size, font-size, to 11 point. And let's see, the other thing I want to do is I want to collapse down the space below this guy. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm just going to save this and refresh the browser. There we go. There's some formatting happening there. But what I want to do is I want to collapse down this space that appears below the paragraph. So, any guesses? It's going to be margin-bottom, right? Because it's the space below this rectangular space, otherwise known as a paragraph. Don't forget, a paragraph is a block-level element, which we discussed way back when. So back inside my CSS, I'm going to go margin-bottom, :space, and I'm going to go with the good old 0 value, just like that. Save this guy up and refresh. There we go. So now that space is collapsed down. Now that's a sidebar. That's looking really good. Now there's one last thing that I want to do, which is kind of driving me nuts, is we have this text indent. Where's that text indent coming from? If I flip back to my code and I go on a hunt, there he is. Way back when, I redefined what it means to be a paragraph. And I said, hey, I want all paragraphs to use justified text alignment, and I want all paragraphs to use a text indent of 50 pixels, which is giving me that result here inside every single paragraph in the document. but that result is also coming through inside the sidebar as well. So I want to override that setting. I want to get rid of that text indent. So what I need to do is I need to specify a new text indent property inside sidebar P. I'm going to drop my cursor in there, and I'm going to go text-indent, full colon space. Now, what value should I use? How about 0, followed by a semicolon? Save that up, and then refresh the browser, and there we go. Now that text indent, that 50 pixels that preceded my paragraph, is now collapsed. This is conditional formatting. We're targeting things like heading 1s and paragraphs, but only if they reside inside the sidebar. Of course, all of the formatting that we see inside our regularly scheduled document, if you want to think of it that way, still appears as it always has.